Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Brian David. I'm from Virtual Building Studio. I'll be your host for the session. At Virtual Building Studio, we help AEC firms establish scalable delivery infrastructure and support end-to-end project workflows from design support and drafting to BIM modeling, coordination, and production delivery. Through these webinars, we focus on bringing practical real-world insights to AEC community through such speaker-led sessions. We are excited to have you all here for today's session. That's Design Faster, Validate Earlier, AI-powered feasibility for modular data center planning. As data center demands continues to grow, teams are under increasing pressure to make faster decisions while ensuring accuracy early in design process. Today's session will explore how AI can significantly accelerate feasibility workflows, helping teams move from weeks to days. Before we get started, a quick note. We'll be running few polls during the session. Second, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A section. We'll address them towards the end of the session. With that, let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. That's Nuno Mourao. Nuno is the Chief Software Architect at Podium, where he leads platform architecture, scalability, and overall technical strategy, ensuring it aligns closely with both business goals and customer needs. With over a decade of experience across telecommunications, healthcare, and AEC industry, Nuno has built and scaled several impactful digital products. His work includes developing a telemedicine platform and a COVID vaccination traceability system, as well as driving product architect at Lendlease. Today, he'll walk us through how AI-powered tools like Podium are transforming modular data center planning from site analysis, layout generation to MVP extraction, and real-time performance tracking. Nuno, excited to have you with us. Over to you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for the intro, and thanks for the attendees that we have today. So I'm gonna start by sharing my screen. And I hope my screen is visible. Okay, so Brian already introduced the topic, already introduced me as well. So I won't take much longer there. I think the main thing I would like to just call out is that I'm in the AEC industry for 5 years now. I was in Lendlease before Podium was created as an entity after Lendlease. And those 5 years in AEC has been quite a bit of a learning in such a complex industry, and really quite exciting to bring innovation to this industry. So yeah, today we'll be covering specifically a data center typology and feasibility, what we are doing in Podium, and really how we can help the industry. So what we're going to cover today, I'll give a quick intro about Podium for those that don't know Podium. What is Podium? How can we help the industry move faster in feasibility and schematic levels? There's going to be a very quick couple of slides, and then we'll go through a live demo. In the live demo, I'm going to cover 3 main topics. I'm going to cover site creation and contextual information. So everything around site context, zoning, power, and infra. Then I'm going to cover data center design generation, right? How are we automating the design of the data center through modular layout configurations down to schematic level automations as well. And then last, how do we do the evaluation of the results? How do we validate those results? So metrics, bill of quantities, doing report and image generations, and then the overall integration with the ecosystem. The ecosystem here, it's not only the technological ecosystem in terms of tools, but also the ecosystem of stakeholders that typically participate in the process. So with a big emphasis on suppliers, for example. I'll cover that in a bit. Then after the live demo, we'll wrap it up. Just really about some notes on the future of the industry and what we see in Podium, and then we'll have some minutes at the end for a Q&A in case there are questions from the audience. So just to start, we'll have a poll first. So Brian, please, if you can launch the first poll just to get a sense of the answers that we'll get. So the first poll we'll have, it's what's the biggest bottleneck in your data center feasibility process today? And this is going to be good to understand what people vote more about. I don't know if the participants are able to see the results, but I'm able to see it on my side. So far, the main answer is the coordination across disciplines, which is tied with getting reliable data for decision making, power, cooling, and cost. So you have more than half people already voted. It's actually quite tight. We have votes in all the answers. Okay, and I think we'll leave it there. So yeah, we have the coordination across disciplines, and then we have the getting reliable data for decision making, like power, cooling, and cost. So that's a good segue to explain a bit what is Podium and what are we focused on. What does Podium do behind the scenes, right? So Podium, you can think about as we go from massing to schematic in minutes, right? That's the main message I want to pass. And then what this allows, it's property developers, design teams, consulting teams, architecture teams to save time at both planning and design stages, which is going to influence also the outcomes of the project, right? So typically people start from massing, very low level, very vague. But in Podium, we go from the massing design to automation. We do spatial breakdown of the building, depending on the typology that is being designed. And then again, through even more automation, we go down to schematic level, where we consider structural systems, MEP systems integrated in a single data model. In the end, we end up with a lot of usable outputs, right? So it's not a dead end. The data is not trapped inside Podium. So you end up having a BIM model, you end up having bill of quantities or schedules, several analyses, bill of materials, and also the fact that we are able to interop with the rest of the ecosystem really means that you can use this data downstream. The effort that goes into putting the model together is not wasted, and this model can then be continuously evolved as the design and the project stages go through. Right, so that's really a key message here, is that Podium automates the jump from concept massing to a real usable design with a lot of data behind the scenes. Right, so as this already touches in some of the pain points, bottlenecks that were referred in the poll, and we have another very quick poll, which is going to introduce the next topic. And this other poll is about how long does it typically take the teams to produce an early stage modular data center feasibility study, right? So data center feasibility studies and any project feasibility study can take quite a long time. So we are curious to know what is typically that time. So we get already votes at around more than 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, and also 2 to 5 days. No one said less than a day so far. Yeah, the votes are coming on more than 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. And that's what we have been seeing and hearing from customers as well. So this is the last slide before I go to the live demo. So in the end, Podium is really a shift in the mindset, right? We are saying you can do feasibility studies much faster end-to-end, going from a 12-week traditional workflow. We hear that people takes from 2 to 12 weeks, depending on the complexity of the project, sometimes even more than that. And that's because there is a lot of back and forth between tools, a lot of different tools, a lot of stakeholders involved, and the data just doesn't flow, right? The data is in multiple systems, which makes it really tricky for that information to go from stakeholder to stakeholder. In Podium, what you will see in the demo is that we cover a lot of that in one single tool or platform. That tool has interoperability and export capabilities to other downstream parts of the process. But in the end, you are able to aggregate a lot of that knowledge in one single tool. And this really reduces a lot the time that is necessary to deliver the feasibility study. So without further ado, I'll move to the live demo. So let me now share my browser. Give me a minute. Share here. I hope it's visible. So what I'm going to guide you today is through those three main topics, right? So site context, automation of the building, and then metrics evaluation. So let's start with the site context first, right? Let's go here to a location that I looked for. So let's just do here project demo webinar. The center. Let's create. And let's build a new project inside Podium. I'm going to do a search to a specific location. And this is the first place that I'm going to make a pause to just explain some of what you're seeing on the screen. Yeah, the location goes to a typical to the location in the map that I searched. Now, here is where some of those pain points, we are trying to address some of those pain points in terms of site understanding and contextual understanding, right? So in Podium, we have something called power, oil and gas, and water infrastructure. We have also something called neighboring buildings, and then we have the 3D context itself, right? This is quite a lot of stuff in the map that can be digested. So neighboring buildings, I'm going to just disable the less interesting ones for this use case. And I'm going to leave power and data centers. So we can see here that in this specific area that I searched, there is quite a lot of existing power-related buildings. There is also existing power lines and pipelines. We are consuming all this data from OpenStreetMaps, which allows us to have global coverage for a lot of these data points, allows really any user that comes into Podium to have this data available without having to bring it manually into the solution. This allows to understand the context. We also bring some 3D buildings into the scene. And this is going to be the base context for all of our designs that we are going to plan in here, right? I'm going to just disable the neighboring building so it's a bit more clean. Specifically here, right, we see a big substation that already exists. It shows us who operates the substation, what kind of voltage is providing, and also something important, which is the power lines that are identified, are they underground or above ground cables? Because this can influence a lot the design of your project, right? So it's an area with quite a lot of access, and I'm just going to make it a bit more clean. The other thing that is important here is we then have different ways of creating sites or importing sites. You can import your own CAD layers. You can draw them by hand. In some regions of the world, we have cadastral information that also allows you to have that cadastra available straight away to you while you are doing your site planning, right? So in here, there is quite a big piece of available land in this area, which is a site. And I'm going to start just with a draw capability in terms of site. make it a bit smaller here by the road. And I'm going to accept it. You can define a boundary. This boundary is really just to define a bit what's in the surroundings and to reduce the context. And we're going to say confirm, and we're going to go to our dashboard. So dashboard, important things here. Typically, you would have a brief that you are trying to meet right when you are creating a project. You can define a lot of targets in Podium. Those targets are going to be one of the things that you typically use in order to compare your scenarios, right? How is the scenario doing against the targets? Let's put here a 150 total IT load, maybe a 250 minimum incoming power, building efficiency, maybe let's assume 40%. Let's say 3 buildings and then roughly 8 data halls. And number of racks, I'm going to leave it empty. I'm going to save these changes. IT load, incoming power, efficiency, buildings, data halls. So I created these targets. These targets are going to be always available inside the project. And it's going to allow us to keep on comparing whatever we produce as the design. So the next step is what we call a scenario, right? I'm going to create a scenario in Podium. This scenario, as you can see, starts with the exact same contextual placement that I did before in the project, smaller area. But what this allows us is that we then are able to bring, additional context layers if we want. So if the layers that Podium is providing here out of the box that I was showing earlier, so the power lines, the substations are not enough, you can always bring your own. So you could bring existing layers that you have acquired, for example, and I'm going to import here one fiber optic, upload it, and now we have here some information in terms of fiber optic as well, which shows us some available fiber optic in the area as well. So this is custom layers that you then can manage as well, right, on top of what Podium already provides. Now, to start our design, I'm just going to clean up the context a bit. We also have stuff like trees, but I'm going to disable all of this so that the scenario is a bit more clean. And I'm going to go into, let's create a planning envelope first, just to define a bit. 5 meter setback, allowable height, let's say 20 meters. It's going to go, this created a planning envelope here. And now the very important piece where a lot of the automation will come in. So we have a concept of templates in Podium. The templates, you can think about it as being different building typologies, each one with its own default template that we provide out of the box. So I'm going to go here and maybe go with a low mid-rise massing. And you can see, yeah, it looks like a massing, but let's just extend it and use it for the plan. So I clicked accept. And what's going to happen now behind the scenes, the automation is going to run. And that massing, and similar to what I showed you on the slide, that massing is going to be converted into an actual data center building, automated. And this data center building now has not only a 3D model behind it, but it has a lot of information behind it as well. So how was this created, right? Podium provides a lot of inputs, we call it criteria, that can influence the design of your data center. You can think about it available utility powers, design PUEs, your building power infrastructure. You can define capacity for your powertrain units, capacity for your gen sets. Where do you prefer them to be, ground or floor? Do you want to define air-cooled or water-cooled chillers? And again, where do you want to be, in the roof, in the ground, capacities? Do you want office and services? Do you want loading docks? And then, very important, of course, what kind of pods do you want for your data hall, right? And what kind of data hall configuration you also want. This means that you can go to very granular detail on all these parameters behind the design. And every time you change it, the automation runs again, and it's going to regenerate the building. So here, let's move, for example, the chillers from the roof to the ground. And the automation is going to pick up that I made a change. It's going to run again behind the scenes. It's going to regenerate again the building. And now the chillers were moved to the ground. And the data center now the design looks different from the previous version, right? So now what comes next, right? You can keep repeating the same design, right? So let's say if I want to replicate this data center, I could just clone it. I can also save it as a building template. This is where then the best practices in terms of design from each single organization can be codified inside Podium. If I save this as a building template, I could say that this is my, so this is, let me just check the metrics. This is a 80 megawatt, say 80 megawatt for the whole building, right? This means that next time in any new project, I'm able to start straight from all my templates, right? And this can be best practices across the organization. They can be utilized from project to project. Maybe in certain regions, there is certain configurations that need to be reutilized. And that's the power behind templates and what we offer as reusable outcomes that the users can have. Besides that, of course, I changed, I think, a couple of criteria, but I can change way more, right? So in this case, I could always go and say, actually, I don't want a 10 kilowatt per rack. I want only I don't want a 20, I want a 10 kilowatt per rack. The automation is going to run again. The metrics will be recomputed again. And now the building went from a 80 megawatt to a 32 megawatt only, right? So this allows really quick iteration and really quick studies on your site. If I want to clone this guy, I can just clone it. Let's put it this way. And now the second building will also be automated. What you then start getting behind all of this, right, is a lot of metrics at the building level and at the site level, right? You get your areas, but not only your areas, which is typically what you have in massing tools, but you start having information on your peak cooling loads, your amount of chillers that you'll have on your design, the capacity of those chillers, and then the total IT load, and also the minimum utility power to serve this building. How many racks, usually quite important as well. Then the typical breakdown of areas that you have across the building as well. You can then see that at the site level, right? The site level will have all the breakdowns as well, very similar fashion. And you can have the aggregation, or you can have the individual parts being shown here as metrics. Something also very important is that you can then start looking at compliance information as well. So there is some compliance validations that we have in terms of height limits, are the geometries within the planning envelope, and this allows some visuals on what would need to change in order to make the design fully compliant against the compliance rules that we currently validate in Podium. This site, for example, was quite a small one, right? Typically, maybe it wouldn't go for mid-rise buildings. Let's maybe do something, and let's go back to the site. Let's enlarge it. Could be bigger. Sure. is all good. And let's go back. Okay, now the site was slightly enlarged. The buildings were repositioned, and I wanted to make this change for two reasons. So first, to save some space, I'm gonna move my chillers to the roof again. And let the automation run. And then this guy as well, also to the roof, and the automation to run. So the other thing that is very important is beyond the automation of the individual buildings, and the focus being, although the focus is on the data centers, we have other elements that we also allow the users to place in the scene. So if you have to plan, for example, substations and where a substation might be within your site, you can also do that through what we call generic buildings in Podium. So if I go here and put a generic building, this generic building, then you can say, okay, this might be my equipment yard. Let's say it's a substation. Let's say it's 132 kilowatt in this region, and maybe I'll make it 80 by 80. This allows you to then plan your ancillary spaces, right? It goes beyond just the automation of the individual building, and it allows you to plan also ancillary spaces within your site, right? So in here, we could say, okay, let's just slightly move the data center buildings. We leave the substation typically at the entrance here. And this is where then stuff like master planning could play a role, right? You could start planning also other things like, okay, what my driveway could look like, right? So we see that there's some dead-end roads in this area. We could also connect those roads into the site. So that could be the starting point here, so that there is access from both sides. We then can also, of course, start doing let me just put this in 2D. Start doing the second undo. Sorry, my bad on this one. Driveway again. Can automate this one first. So every single thing that I'm putting in the scene, then the automation always runs in order to produce any single data point behind it. So here we could say we'll have roads here to service this side of the building. We actually should rotate it so that the office is at the front. There's some snapping tools that I typically don't use, but the designers use it. So, okay, and then we can always have another driveway here for the other building as well. Okay, so so this is to give a glance really on how iterative the process can be and how fast the process can be on generating the designs and benefiting of the usage of templates and benefiting of the live metrics, not only for the building but for the entire site. Now, something very important that comes with this is whatever you're seeing on the screen in the data center, these parts are not random sizes. None of these parts that you see here, the chillers, the PTUs, the racks, they are not random sizes in terms of equipments. They are actual sizes of suppliers. So this is where the shift left happens, where we are bringing supplier information as early feasibility, right? So these are not only random boxes and massings with certain sizes that might work. These are actually boxes that already are sized against supplier parts. This is where the supplier catalogs, the kit of parts being available early in the process can save a lot of time. It can help a lot in terms of procurement, understanding what suppliers might need to be engaged up front. And again, in terms of optioneering, could be a very powerful workflow, because you are able then to compare supplier A versus supplier B in terms of using it on your design. You might have preferred suppliers that you typically already work with from a property development point of view, and that helps a lot, because this allows you straight away to have a lot of data up front, right? So yes, we are showing a 3D model. Yes, we are showing area metrics, IT loads, minimum utility power, but we also then bring to the front of the design what we call schedules, right? In some areas of the world, it's bill of quantities. In other areas, it's bill of materials. But these schedules really allow you to, from the early stage, understand the amount of equipment that you will need, and the amount of equipment that you might need to source from suppliers. In here, you can see powertrain units, air-cooled chillers, fan wall units. I'm going to click on air-cooled chiller. This is going to give me every single air-cooled chiller in that building that I selected, with the location, with the power inputs, cooling capacities, dimensions, and then supplier, if there is one assigned, right? You can go with generic suppliers if you don't want to enforce any supplier, and in this case, it follows best practices in terms of sizing. But if you want to enforce a supplier, and here, for example, if I go to powertrain units, a specific supplier can be used, right? And in this case, we see here the supplier being ABB. Again, every single powertrain unit here being listed with the dimensions, electrical ratings, capacities, etc. What this allows is that you have so much data up front, even down to the schedules, that financial analysis can become more accurate. You can plan your schedules, you can plan your procurement much earlier. And also the suppliers can start having visibility to their potential pipeline very early, right? So if we imagine suppliers using Podium as well, they would have access to where are my products being used, in how many projects, where in the world, right? And this allows them to then potentially prepare for a big surge on orders coming from confirmed projects, right? Projects that went from feasibility and then to conversion. I think a couple of other things that just make this more even more enticing, right? I was saying 3D models, I was saying metrics, I was showing schedules, but the other things that you can get that are helpful from early feasibility to be even faster is, let's say here, let's go and turn Podi on. Let's go report generator. I'm going to generate a quick, actually, let me do something else first. Let's just take a quick screenshot of this site first. Take a screenshot. And before we go to the report, let's go to this guy called scene to image export. Yeah. Okay, let's see what we got. This one sometimes takes a little while. Let's see what we get out of the image generation. So again, this is early feasibility. A lot of things can be produced out of the early feasibility stage, and one of the things that we have done recently, it's just the typical AI image rendering, which is gonna help in terms of producing reports for presentations and to, of course, pitch the project to investors, to other people in the company, and that's part of the workflow that we have been working on as well. So the image usually takes a while in the first pass. Let's see how it looks. Okay, not too bad, right? So we have here 2 data centers. It kind of kept the designs very close to what we have in Podium. The surroundings also very good. We can always ask to iterate on the image to add further information, and this then becomes available. Let's save it here into one second. I'm saving it here into what we call gallery. And then now, yes, let's go to the report generator. So let's generate a PDF report. There are different templates. Let's go with this one with the side metrics. Let's say this would be a feasibility study for, let's say, customer ABC. Let's choose the AI rendering. Let's choose the 3D model used for the report, and let's preview it first. Okay, so preview, what this gives to users is a report where you have access to the images that you selected, all the breakdown of metrics in terms of areas, the breakdown of site coverages, and all the breakdown of metrics for the data centers as well. Total IT load, minimum incoming power, floor areas for the DC, data hall areas, planned spaces, how many buildings, how many data halls, and how many racks. It also shows a location, and it shows also a windrows analysis, which I didn't show earlier, but it's another thing that typically can be used as you are studying your site. We have a windrows analysis, which allows you to know in that region what are the typical winds. So this is wind data from NASA for a 30-year data, and this shows that in this area, in this geolocation, the wind is usually strong from south, and this can influence the positioning of a building, right? South in this case means that probably in terms of cooling, it's going to be good for the data center as well. So yeah, so the PDF report, it's another thing that you could get out of Podium, and again with the help of AI, all these artifacts become available very quickly as you iterate through your design. Let me just check the time, 11:40. Okay. What I'm going to show next is another outcome you could get, again, of the same design.
Hello, everyone. Seems there's some technical glitch. We'll wait for Nuno to get back. Appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Did I drop for a bit?
Yes, but it's okay.
Okay. I stopped seeing the tab, and I was wondering what was the reason. I don't know where I dropped, actually.
So, yep.
Okay. So let me go back to here. I was going through optioneering at schematic level. So that's where the schematic level in Podium comes through. Further automation on the building, generating the structural systems, metrics in terms of industrialized construction, prefabrication, repetition, ease of transportation, ease of assembly. So this is another layer on top of that automation that we saw in the beginning, which in the same building then coordinates the three domains together, which can save a lot of time on configuring a single model with all these domains fully coordinated with no clashes. This can then be ported into Revit, for example, and that allows then detailed design to happen in Revit with no data loss, right? So that's a very key value proposition of Podium, is all this data can then be consumed in Revit. We map everything into Revit families and allows you to really evolve this design to detailed design and further down to construction, right? So the data won't be trapped in Podium, and it won't be data that you won't need to redo your model again, right? So very important here, and all the schedules come together with this. The last thing I want to show is financial. So I'm gonna share something else. We also allow users to use their existing Excel sheets with Podium data. So what was missing maybe in all that flow was financials, right? And how can the financials be brought into the picture? Teams typically already have their own financial analysis. They already do it in a very specific way. So what we enabled is we have a plugin for Excel, which you can use your Podium account to log into. This allows you to load your projects, load your scenarios, load your buildings, load your schedules, and any data that Podium provides, you can consume it here. Then you just need to really map it to Excel cells and let your calculations go through. Here is a sample of Excel sheet where we would have the typical cost of the material, the cost of transportation, the cost of assembly, and by consuming all schedules that Podium has produced, then the users can have the analysis of, let's say, columns, beams, and slabs, and what is the inherent cost for material, for transport, and for assembly. Every time you change a model, the data again flows through the Excel plugin, and that means that you can iterate on your design and see the changes coming through the Excel sheet as well. So for quantity surveyors, for estimators, this can become a very useful workflow, because you might have your designer in Podium changing the design, applying different configurations to the automation, and then have your estimators seeing the results in real time in their existing sheets, right? So that's overall what I wanted to show. So just as a summary of what you've seen so far, let me pause this sharing and go back to the slides. Share the screen. Okay. We have a little poll before we wrap it up, the third one. So this poll will be which output would create the most value for our team at feasibility stage. I showed a lot of different outputs coming out of Podium: 3D model, metrics, IT loads, bill of quantities for every single equipment, bill of quantities for structure, report generation, AI image rendering. all of it in one single place. And roughly in 30 minutes, we went through all that design and produced a result. So typically, what would be the output that create the most value for your team at feasibility stage? And right now, the answers are coming. We have a vote on clear understanding of site constraints and limits, exploring more design options without increasing effort. Let's see, I guess it's coming through every single answer in a way. We have a tie so far. Okay. Okay, so let's, before we go to Q&A, let's just wrap it up what I showed you guys, right? So we saw typology templates. Templates are important because best practices must be reused so that you save a lot of time, so that the teams work in a similar fashion on new projects. They don't need to start always from scratch, right? This is all backed by computational AI solving, but also from some agentic solving that we introduced recently in some of the workflows that you just saw. We have a unified data model. Why? It's important that the data all lives together, regardless of what's the domain. And then supplier kit of parts, right? All those equipments, all those structural systems, they were using parts of suppliers. So very important for all this information to become available so that the automation can pick it up and produce better results. Feasibility study is what we went through. Project conversion is what I showed you a bit on that schematic model. But in the end, is really, you can go from a blank site to a fully quantified, carbon tracked and structural frame proposal in the time that it kind of takes to just grab a coffee, right? So you can see the real-time metrics in every design scenario, and you can just keep on iterating and hopefully really deliver faster and be able to compare way more than you typically do these days, right? So in the end, and bringing back this same image, we ended up seeing site analysis, bill of quantities, a bit of financial modeling, collaboration, because of course multiple stakeholders could be in Podium doing different tasks, all backed by design automation, backed by supplier data in a data-rich model. We produced a concept layout, we produced a 3D model, we did an AI rendering, we showed a bit of costing analysis, and we showed a structural system as well, right? All in one single place. So yeah, with this, I conclude the presentation. Let's go to Q&A. There's also a little QR code if you want to know more about Podium. This will lead you to a form so that we can keep in touch with you. And let's see if there is any questions to answer. Oh, there is some questions on the Q&A. Okay. So let me go through the questions. Abhinay Azri, will it work only for a data center or any big projects? So I showed data center as the key typology for today. Podium currently focuses in two main typologies: residential, high-rise, and data center. We also have industrial ramp-up factory, which is a typical industrial building where there's a ramp that you need to automate as well in order for the trucks to serve the different floors. So Podium covers those typologies in depth in terms of automation. There is more coming in terms of hospitality, in terms of education potentially. But right now, these are the three key typologies that we are covering in depth for the automation. Then from Abin Nayazri as well. Since I have an idea on AutoS Forma and its features and on the Podium, I think there are a lot of similar features. Actually, what is the main difference? So if I use Podium, what can achieve measure? Yeah, so it's funny that you brought out Forma. So we actually have an extension for Forma, which we built also in the last 4 to 5 months. The main difference we see is really all these metrics and the in-depth automation that we offer on certain typologies we are a design automation tool, where Informa, it's more like a design tool, right? It's still all very freehand, free drawing. Every single box you need to kind of create it by hand. And the main difference we see here is really we are trying to automate all the internals of the building, and also the schematic automation, right? The structural systems that I showed, they are sized against the necessary loads for the building, which means that we are not just putting random structural elements in the building. They're actually sized and following a grid system that is going to support the building. So we have our own structural analysis that runs behind the scenes. Our Podium and Informa are complementary right now, and how our customers are using it. They take the full Podium design, they bring into Informa for the simulations in terms of wind, solar, carbon, because we don't have those simulations, and it hasn't been the focus of Podium so far. I hope that answers the question. Does Podium have any modules in the automation that performs the construction feasibility study? I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. That performs the construction feasibility. Okay, maybe I'll go back to this one later. Kindly walk us through on the MEP systems design, calculation, generation, and layout schematics. Oh, sorry, I think these questions would be more pertinent as I was going through the demo. Is there a list of suppliers whose catalog data is uploaded to Podium? Yes. So we have data from several suppliers. So Schindler, Daikin, ABB, some precast suppliers as well, a lot of MEP suppliers. So we keep in touch with the suppliers to have more and more data and to show them the benefits that they can get when. Okay, I just saw the next comment from Abinay Asri. Okay, cool. For which region or country are the prices in the estimator? So, okay, very good question. Our configuration, you can configure your own costing, right? So we have configuration that allows you to put your rates for different categories. If you change those rates, the default cost that shows there will change, and you can put in different currencies. Each company will know the rates best in their own region. So we allow the configuration to do that. I didn't show it on the demo, but there is a full-blown configuration that you can go, which allows to inform the estimation as well. What level of detail can we reach using the Podium app? So what you saw on site level, it's like a 100, 150. What you saw on schematic level, in some typologies, it goes up to 250. Now, we have data beyond that. A lot of our data from the suppliers, it actually contains the full high level of detail necessary information, but we don't render it in Podium. It's not our focus right now, and what we allow is people to jump into Revit, for example, the model from Podium to our plugin, the data from Podium shows in Revit with the high level of fidelity. So all those supplier parts, when you move to Revit, because the families exist, you can then pretty much load the same model with all the high level of detail. So that's the benefit of our integration with Revit, and how we see the design moving from schematic to detail. Is there a data center built using the Podium solution, and what about European standards? So right now, all the structural systems, for example, they are using Eurocode. So that was our first implementation. We are looking at US and India codes as well due to some prospects that we and some customers that we have in those regions. And right now, Podium is being used in its majority for the feasibility, right? A lot of our customers are studying a lot of sites, understanding what kind of data center designs they want and can put on those sites, and comparing the options. So that's the main thing. And yeah, we are running in some live projects. Right now, it's mostly US and Asia. Europe, we have some prospects, but no actual customer in Europe yet, for at least for the data center space. How can Podium enable industrialized construction practices such as prefab and PVC assemblies offsite? Again, very good question. So a lot of what you saw in the automation, we are picking those supplier kit of parts, and as long as the supplier is able to provide us that information, our automation is going to pick it and assign it to the design, right? So that's how that reusability can be achieved inside Podium. And the more parts we'll have, the more we can have these modular approaches, right? So all the parts in the data center are very modular. The PTUs, the chillers are all modular elements that can be assembled part by part, and that's what we see in terms of benefit as well. Can the 3D model be exported to Revit and work on? Yes. So we have a Revit plugin, we have an AutoCAD plugin where the model can be fully exported without losing any data. We mapped not only the geometry, every data point that you saw there, we mapped to the Revit families as well. Same for AutoCAD. So, okay, I think I covered all the Q&A. Thank you for all the questions.
I believe that concludes our today's session. Thank you, Nuno. That was a fantastic session. Really insightful to see how AI is being applied in such a practical way to compress feasibility timelines, improve decision time making, and bring more confidence into early stage planning. And thank you to everyone who joined us today and participated in this session. If we didn't get your question, we'll make sure to follow up with you after the webinar. We'll also be sharing the recording of this session. We regularly host the webinars focused on real-world workflows across AC, MEP, and reality capture. If you are interested in similar sessions, feel free to stay connected with Virtual Building Studio. Thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in our upcoming session. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.